Hello everyone, welcome to TT Studios, and today we're going to be having a look at Battlefield 5 and the performance you're going to be getting on a range of hardware I have. I'm mostly testing graphics cards today, and we've got three main components we're going to be testing today. The GTX 970, GTX 1050, 2GB, and the GTX 950M laptop card. So these are all NVIDIA components. We don't have any AMD graphics cards here at the moment. I don't really use AMD cards that much just because I've never really been able to choose what I want. I've got the 1050 here because I'm selling it to someone, and I've got the 970 in my main rig and the 950 in my laptop. But anyway, we're going to be testing these three for their performance and see how well they do in this game. The recommended requirements and minimum requirements appear to have been pulled from Battlefield 1, so the 970 is essentially the recommended requirement for this game, and the 950M, in this case the laptop card, is very similar to a 660 Ti or a 750 Ti, so that is a little bit more powerful than the minimum requirement to run the game, and we shall see the results. So first up, we have a GTX 1050 2GB. I specifically have the Gigabyte version here, and I tested it on the Ultra settings first. It was very playable. I did all my testing on the cool like long-term conquest map. I'll put the name on the screen here. I can't remember what it is right now, but we got an average of 33 FPS, which isn't amazing, but considering we're on ultra settings on a 2GB card, which is the amount of VRAM it has, it's pretty impressive. I did decide to lower the quality settings down to medium later to test how good it would perform and how much of a better experience it would have. I tried to get the minimum frame rates and 0.1% lows, but that didn't work. But I did get them for the 970 and the 950, which is a little bit better. So now we swapped over to the medium settings, and it was a lot more playable. There was a bit of stutter, but it was alright with the ultra settings, but when we go up to medium, it felt a lot more smooth with 47 FPS, and that just feels a lot more playable with this card. This is a pretty powerful card, even though it only costs about $160 in the US and a little bit more in the UK, I do believe. But the prices are all over the place at the moment. You can probably find one second hand for fairly cheap, and a comparable card will probably be the GTX 770 or GTX 960, so if you can find one of those second hand, especially if you manage to pick up the 4GB model of the 960. Anyway, moving on, we have the GTX 970 results, which is, like I said before, essentially the recommended requirements for the game, as well as the 16GB of RAM I have in the machine. I must state the start of this map is pretty cool. I wasn't benchmarking at this specific point, I only started benchmarking once we got on the ground, but it was very playable with the 970 with an average of 61 FPS, and the minimum frame rate ended up being 0 because apparently I alt-tabbed at some point during the benchmark, but overall it was a very playable average of 61 FPS. There was no stuttering really at all, and all of this was recorded from a capture card on the other device, so if I was benchmarking the desktop, I was recording with the laptop with the capture card, and vice versa when I was recording the laptop results. So it was very playable with the 970 and 16 gigs of RAM with the i7, and I was pretty pleased with the performance at Ultra. I didn't bother lowering it at all because my refresh rate is 60, and that's pretty much exactly what I was getting. So I'm pretty impressed with the 970, and it was quite a lot of stuff going on in this map at this point, so I guess it kind of had a disadvantage. Moving on, we have the 950M's results, which is also a 2GB card, and on the Ultra settings we were not getting particularly playable FPS, mostly because it just is a slightly slower card, and I do believe that at some point in the second part of this benchmark I may have had some thermal throttling on the CPU, which could have led to much lower FPS because it did end up overheating after the benchmark. My laptop's just got a few cooling issues that I need to sort out. But besides that, I did end up managing to get a kill, or at least a kill assist, and I was pretty impressed with that because the average was only 19 FPS with a minimum FPS of 12. Then moving on, we moved it to the medium quality, which felt a lot better, but the improvement was not as great as you might expect, with an average of 25 FPS, minimum of 18, and a maximum of 42. So the FPS was a lot less up and down. It was a bit more stable, and the average was a bit higher, so it felt more playable. Almost as playable as the 1050 when it is on Ultra. So if you can spare the money, get the 1050. I know a lot of the new laptops have 1050s in them, and they're pretty good price performance, so you should be fairly good getting one of those. I must mention that all of these tests were run on the Grand Operations map, but the multiplayer testing apparently really isn't that consistent, so if I ran these tests again, I probably would get very different results, higher or lower. So let me know what you are getting in your results, and I hope that this helped you in your buying decisions for graphics cards or whether you should get the game. If you are planning to build a system and want to run the game, I would recommend an i7, maybe an older one, so like a 3rd gen and 2nd gen processor with DDR3 RAM, preferably 16 gigs, and like I said, a GTX 770 or 960 would do if you can find one second hand and you're on a budget. Otherwise, if you can spare the money, the 970 is the greatest card you can get for this game, really. If you want 60 FPS at Ultra, you don't really need anything better than that. So thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I have a Discord server linked in the description below if you want to join that. And I hope you enjoy the content I have to come. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.